A month ago, Amazon launched New World, its first arguably successful video game that it managed to actually finish and make it to production and be pretty well received at launch. It arrived with 913,000 concurrent players on Steam, which is one of the top concurrently played games on Steam of all time, which is very impressive, both for Amazon's first new game and a brand new IP. However, over the course of the past month, the MMO has quickly seen its player count decline to a level where it's still fairly high, and yet the rate of decline, if it continues, could pose some pretty big trouble for the game. So we started at 913,000, and looking over these numbers, I'm estimating that it has lost an average of 135,000 players a week. The first week was 913,000 to 726,000. I'm measuring Sunday to Sunday, which is usually the peak. And then that went down to 608,000 the next weekend, then 508,000 this past Sunday. And now during the week, we're starting to hit things like under 400,000. So this yesterday was 374,000, which we are approaching a third of the max of the game in just the first month here. For most games, this would not be the biggest of deals because you play a game, you beat the game, you move on. It's not really a huge surprise to see a player count decrease. However, with an MMO, the entire point is to design a game to keep players playing. And this is also before a period of time where there have been like any really ultra major releases that would compete for it. We're heading into November where there are a lot of high profile releases like Forza and Call of Duty, Battlefield, and then Halo in December, and then some MMO expansions, Final Fantasy Endwalkers coming out, and so it's going to face even steeper competition going forward here. There is not one specific reason why players are kind of leaving the game, because it depends what kind of player you are and maybe what obstacles you have run into in order to keep playing. For lower level, newer players, this is a very grind-intensive game to the point where the repetition, if you're not kind of accustomed to that sort of thing in an MMO, can be sort of a turnoff. The game does not really have a story to speak of. This is a brand new IP, and ideally, in a perfect world, you would want to kind of introduce that with a lively story and memorable characters and stuff, but New World is almost entirely 100% focused on just the mechanics. And the mechanics fundamentals are pretty solid, and yet this has not created kind of an engaging universe the way you might see with a World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy. Especially when you're developing a new IP, that is extremely important. For other players who have made it to the end game, many of them have just kind of hit that point and sort of either run out of stuff to do or have run into kind of so many bugs and glitches regarding certain annoying things that are happening in the game that they have left. The game is heavily skewed toward being around this constant kind of merry-go-round of territory control. And so if you're not really into that, it can be pretty punishing to lose all your territory, or if you fail to defend PvE invasions, seeing your towns downgraded. There's a lot of, not to say Farmville-esque, but like there's a lot of maintenance that you need to do in order to not lose things. So it's designed to try and keep you playing so you don't lose things, but wiping progress seems to be a turnoff for a lot of people in that regard too. And then a lot of endgame players are sort of hitting the end and not really knowing what to do, because New World has also not debuted anything like a content roadmap or anything like that in terms of what the future holds for this game. We don't know if it is going to have kind of smaller seasonal releases. We don't know if it's going to have huge expansions. We don't know the timing of any future content it's adding. Right now, New World is kind of stuck in the famous AAA fix all the bugs phase, which many games find themselves in, unfortunately, this close to launch here. And that means, while they're just fixing what's wrong, they're not adding anything new or doing much with quality of life features. So it is very tough tough for any company, but especially with this being Amazon's first truly major game, to launch a MMO is beyond a high order. And I think everyone was very impressed with the, at least the baseline of what they got out, but now they're kind of realizing how much maintenance it takes to retain your player base. Other MMOs have subscription models, so players might feel more obligated to make use of their subscription, which costs, $10, $15 a month, whatever. Whereas New World, you can just drop any time. So if you're not having fun, you're not paying anything for it, so you can just set it down. They're trying to make up for that with microtransactions and cosmetics and stuff, but it's not usually how most MMOs operate, and there might be a reason for that. We will see if these declines continue. They are slowing down a little bit, and we are going to probably end up with a core player base at some point, but I am very curious to see what the game is at a month from now. So if after 1 month we've gone from over 900,000 concurrent players to 370,000 in 4 weeks, what's going to happen another 4 weeks from now? It's not going to lose all its players, obviously, but what do we settle at? Like 200,000, 150,000, 100,000? Is that good enough to have Amazon still consider this a success and an ongoing project they want to devote years and years of resources to? I don't know if we know that. So this is something to keep an eye on. I'm not declaring the game dead or anything, but it is very noticeable to see how sharply the player base has declined. And when your friends quit and are playing, and that is likely to make you quit also. So it can have kind of a snowball effect where if people are not having a team to play with anymore, they might leave themselves. So we'll see what happens from here. New World should still be considered a success because of the launch it had, but whether it is a long-term sustainable success is another story entirely.